Hey folks, it's Rob from Thunder Sausage, and I'm just going to be walking you through how to cook chicken marsala today. Not really gaming, but it's going to be a little cooking, which is fine. I'm going to show you just basically what our ingredients are going to be, and then we're going to break it down into 3 different stages. We're going to do prep work, cook work, and then just plating. So of course, chicken marsala, you're going to need chicken. I'm using boneless, skinless chicken breast. You can use chicken thighs if you want, but I like boneless, skinless chicken breast. It's a little bit easier to work through or work with, and it cooks faster. I'm going to use about 2 cartons of pre-cut baby bella mushrooms, portobello mushrooms. You can buy the whole mushrooms and cut them yourself. Up to you. Heavy cream, of course. Chicken stock, dry marsala wine. You can use sweet marsala wine, but if you want to be like traditional, you can use dry marsala. But up to you. I'm using spaghetti pasta. This is just basic spaghetti, not thin spaghetti. You can use fettuccine pasta if you like. 2 shallots that I'm gonna thinly dice, and then just some garlic cloves. And yeah, let's get into the prep. So just quick to start, let's go ahead and wash your hands, make sure we're clean while we're working with all our ingredients, because even though all this stuff is gonna be cooked, we do wanna make sure we're keeping a nice clean environment. Push that down. And then we're gonna go ahead, the 2 main things we have to do in prep is butterfly and season the chicken breast, and then the other thing that I'm gonna walk through here and do real quick is get our pot, fill it with some cool water. I usually just fill it about halfway, 2/3 way, it depends on how much pasta you're making. The portion size I'm making is about 2 to 3 people, so if you wanna make it for 1, you can probably use a little less pasta, of course, a little less water. So just set that there. And of course, for boiling water, especially for pasta, you're gonna wanna generously salt that water. So we'll go ahead and make sure we got that salty enough to see. Should be good. And then we're gonna get that on a high heat. And we just do that first because water takes a while to boil. Do a rag here. And let's go ahead and butterfly these chicken breasts. Why I'm butterflying these is just because it'll cook a little bit more evenly and quickly, which gives us time to make that sauce. So let's go ahead and just cut those into little halves. And you can just slice completely through them if you want, but I kind of like butterflying them like this and just laying them out. It gives a little bit more surface area, makes it look a little nicer. Same thing on this one. A little bit. Perfect. Throw that out. And then we're just gonna go ahead and season these. You can go ahead and directly apply the seasoning. You can pat it dry if you want. I typically like using, I have this little olive oil spritzer. It just gives it a little bit more fat content, okay? And it just broke. Olive oil spritzer has a little bit more fat content, and it just helps the seasoning adhere a little bit better. So I usually just like to get those a little light spritzing. And you could just, if you want, you can just directly apply the olive oil if you want. And main flavors that are gonna be shining through is gonna be through that sauce. So we're not gonna like generously season this. It's not gonna be very powerful. Use very simple seasonings. Start with salt. I'm gonna use fresh cracked black pepper. Just coat the entire surface. I'm gonna use some garlic powder. Just like that. Make sure to fling it everywhere. It's a central part of the process. And then I like just using a little bit of Italian seasoning. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, it burns in the cooking process. You know what? Be quiet. I do what I want. All right, there you go. And do the same for the other one. So we got the cutting board clean, got the knife clean, and we got our chicken waiting over there to be cooked. So let's continue with our prep here. I got 2 large, medium, large shallots. I don't know. We're just gonna go ahead and take that off. I like to slice them pretty much vertically, just like that, so I can get this papery fat out of there, as well as this kind of unappetizing little rubbery outside. Just basically peel the shallot entirely. You don't really need 2 whole ones, and to be completely honest, I usually don't use shallots in this recipe, but it adds a little bit of depth and flavor, so it doesn't hurt. So push those over there. Go ahead and clean that up a little bit. I am just going to basically mince these. So I'm going to cut the stem off right there, just a little V-cut, just to get that out of there. Be gone. And then I am going to cut it long ways, just into little sticks, not cutting all the way to the top near the root, just basically cutting right to the upper limit there, but not all the way through. Just basically getting little sticks here. Okay. And then just rotating it, and then just very fine bits. And then just to be sure, finely minced. Just like to go through. Just get everything another once over. So I want this basically to just cook through and dissolve into the food, not really to be an added texture element. So push that to the side. Get one more going here. Well, let's do this little one. Don't need that much. Again, take off that head. I don't know about y'all, but I always find peeling onions, cutting onions, working with onions is very satisfying. Cut nicely. Especially if you have a nice sharp knife like this. Same thing. I know a lot of people are gonna go in the comments and be like, "That's not how you use your fingers. You're gonna cut your fingers off." But you know what? I do what I want. You come make it. You should, because it's very tasty. Use it like that. Back over. After you're thoroughly crying and thinking about everything that went wrong in your life while you your eyes tear up, cutting these onions, you can go ahead and check on the water here, and that's coming to a boil. It's almost there to a rolling boil. We want to make sure it's a rolling boil before you insert that pasta. Come back over here. Go ahead and clean up everything. And I mean, basically, all we got left to do is just wash off your mushrooms, and we're ready to go to the cooking stage. All right, so moving on to the cooking phase, we got our basically like I think it's a 12.5-inch stainless steel skillet. You can use nonstick. I like stainless steel because it gives a better sear. We'll go ahead and heat that over medium-high heat. Add in some olive oil. This is extra virgin. I don't typically recommend using extra virgin because it has a very low smoke point, but it's what I have on hand, so we're just gonna use that. Put a good bit of olive oil in there. And I did forget to mention this in the prep phase. You're gonna need a little bit of butter, but I mean, you don't have to have the butter, but it just adds a little bit of extra flavor in there. Cut that off. Just get about that much, about a tablespoon. Let that all in there. Now that heats. Take another look at our. That's about a rolling boil. It's still a little bit under there, but we'll rock with that. We'll rock with that. Take our pasta here. Go ahead. Just slide that on in there. I am going to use some tongs here and just basically rotate that pasta, making sure it's not sticking to the bottom. We don't want grilled pasta or seared pasta. We want boiled pasta, or al dente boiled pasta. We'll let those ends soften up a little bit just until starts to give a little give. As this comes up to heat, make sure that this butter's not burning. That all of this fat is just getting nice and rendered down so that we can sear, pan fry, whatever you want to call it, these chicken breasts. Once it starts kind of bubbling up like that, Sometimes I'll cut off a little piece of the chicken and just drop it in there, and then if it starts to sizzle like that, I know the pan is ready to start searing. But I'm just gonna try and use my eyeballs this time. We'll see. Might be too early, might be too late. The thing about cooking is that you can do it however you like. Let's go ahead. Hear that? Hear that noise? Yeah, it's ready. Might need to do this in 2 separate batches, which is just fine. But basically, we're trying to get color on these chicken breasts. We're not really trying to cook them through because we are going to let them rest after we get color on them, slice them up, and then finish them, make sure they're cooked through in the sauce so that imparts all that flavor. So we're not really trying to get them cooked through. If you do, while in the process of searing them and getting that color on there, cook them through, that's not a problem. But that's not really our goal here. We're just trying to get that color on there because color is flavor. Let's check on our pasta here. So we've got some color on our chicken here, we're letting that rest, and now we're going to go ahead and start on our sauce. So the first thing I'm going to do is take all these mushrooms that we've washed here, and we've got our pan cooled down on lower heat. We don't want it super ripping hot because we're not trying to like burn the mushrooms or anything. So let's just get some of these in here. And you might be looking at this like, oh, that's a lot of mushrooms, but mushrooms will shrink down once they're cooked. So although this looks like a whole lot right now, it'll probably not be that much towards the end. But mushrooms, of course, are a huge flavor when it comes to chicken marsala. Basically, see all that stuff on the bottom of the pan there? That's left over from that chicken. That is great flavor. So what we're doing with the mushrooms, we're trying to basically season it with that fond that's on the bottom of that pan. Imparts a whole lot of flavor in these mushrooms because, of course, mushrooms soak up pretty much every single bit of flavor that you expose to them. So just extra flavor. And if you notice your pan's a little dry after that chicken, then I like to put butter in there. So we're going to do a little bit of butter. Just a little bit. To about like a low to medium low heat. And just stir in that butter. And you can see that these mushrooms already are just getting a little bit glossy. See all that color that's imparting on there. Even look at the bottom of the pan now. See, it's cleaning off the bottom of that pan. All that flavor's getting on those mushrooms. It smells amazing. Keep that going. And basically, we're just waiting for these mushrooms to get basically just before they're entirely cooked, just soft, and then we'll add in some of our other ingredients like the shallots and the garlic. Now, if you're wondering what we did with that garlic, because I didn't really do anything with it in the prep phase, we're going to use a garlic press to incorporate that garlic flavor into this dish. Now, if you have like a microflame, you can use that to get that garlic in there, or you could just use a knife and just chiffonade on it and get it in there, but it's up to you. I like using a garlic press. But now it's the big, and as with every single step to every single recipe, we'll season it. So I just got salt and pepper. Salt those mushrooms. And press it on black up. As you can see, those mushrooms are starting to get nice and glistening, and they definitely cook it down a little bit. Just up the heat just a little bit. start to cook it down. Don't escape. Don't escape. This is your destiny. I'm going to go ahead and get this garlic here. And we've got like just fresh garlic. These are very weird garlic cloves. Look at that. I don't know why they're weird like that, but that's fine. They all look just the same. Load them into the garlic. Masher, press, whatever you want to call it. Ginger crusher, I don't know. Throw it in there and then just crush that on. Just like that. And I like to use my knife. Waste. Well, another reason we like to keep it on this low to medium-low heat is just because we don't want to burn that garlic. We're really trying to make sure we're just waiting until that garlic gets nice and aromatic. We don't want to fry it or burn it. We just want to basically incorporate it into the flavor of those mushrooms. As you can see, these mushrooms are already getting, don't run away, these mushrooms are already getting pretty soft. While we wait on those to just come right up and finish, let's check on our pasta here. And if you're not sure if your pasta is done, the best way to check, take one out, you can pinch through it with your fingers, means it should be done. So I'm going to be looking really good. I think it's time to add the shots. And get a knife here, throw those in. Just a splash of olive oil to get those nice and incorporated. We just want, basically just trying to get that purple color out of there. We want these to be translucent, and by the end of it, they'll probably dissolve into the sauce, depending on how thin you slice them. I didn't slice these too thin, or I guess I didn't dice them too thin, so there might still be some texture in there, but as long as we get those rendered down to where they're translucent and fragrant, then they should be just fine. And as you can see, that pan is just deep glazed entirely. It's nice and glossy on the bottom there. There's none of that fond left. We've pretty much taken all that up, got it right into this dish here, which is really good flavor. I'm actually going to add a little bit more garlic. Spoon tea, yeah. Stir that in. Let's get a little bit more heat on there. And of course, this is all dependent on your situation. If you've got using a non-stick pan, it's probably not going to be as conducive to the heat, so you might want to use a little bit of higher heat just to make sure that you're maintaining that heat throughout. If you're using less, if you're making less ingredients or anything like that, then of course you're going to want to use a little bit lower of the heat, or just because you don't want to burn anything. So just basically cook with your eyes. If something doesn't look right, doesn't taste right, doesn't smell right, it probably isn't right. So just use your senses. Don't mistrust your senses. Okay. As we can see, that is cooking real nice. Our next step is going to be the namesake of the dish, which is our Marsala wines. Go ahead and grab that. Now this is, like I said, it's a dry Marsala. You can use a sweet Marsala, but it's going to be a little sweeter, so go ahead and pour that over. Beautiful. We're going to bump that heat up just a little bit, just so we can start to get it to simmer. See it start bubbling all around the edges, and it'll start more and bubbling on the inside. And then to get it to simmer, we'll go ahead and release that heat down. got it all simmering in there. As soon as it gets a pretty consistent boil, we'll lower it down to a gentle simmer and we'll get all that alcohol content out of there. Another way I've seen people do it is they get a lighter and flambe it and get all that alcohol content off there pretty quick. But I feel like that just makes a little bit different of a texture, a little bit more glossy texture. I like it better when I just slowly simmer it like this and get that alcohol content off. So. All right, so all the alcohol is burned off now. We're just gonna add just a little bit of chicken broth, unsalted preferably, because we want to control that seasoning. Just till it covers that chicken. Okay, that's good. Just want to mix that in. Make sure we've got that well incorporated with all of our ingredients here. Make sure all that chicken is submerged. I did check the temperature on the chicken before we cut into it, and it was about 155, so just a little bit under 165, so we just gotta let that come up to temperature in the sauce, which was the plan, so just gonna impart a lot of flavor, so good. And same thing with this, we're just trying to let this reduce, so we're gonna turn that heat up just a little bit to get that chicken broth up to temperature. Cream time. Hashtag creamination. Anyways, we're gonna add a little bit of cream. This is basically just gonna give it a little bit of sweetness and really thicken up the sauce. Oh, and by the way, before this, we let it reduce for a good bit just to get some of that liquid content down, just so we can really thicken that sauce up. Try not to spill it everywhere, usually helps. A little bit more. I know a lot of people will typically thicken the sauce by coating the chicken breast in flour and then omitting the cream, which is the more traditional way to do it. I typically just like using cream. It's kind of the more American way to do it, but I like it. It adds a little bit of sweetness to it, especially if you're already using dry Marsala wine. All right, so basically we're done letting this reduce and it looks ready, so we're gonna move on to plating. So I just got a little bowl here, a little pasta bowl, just a bed of that spaghetti that we made earlier, and I'm basically just gonna get a nice healthy helping. Now you can toss the noodles in the sauce if you want to. I typically recommend doing that. I just didn't really have a lot of space in this pan, so we're just gonna use a bed of noodles and just throw some extra sauce on there. Make sure we get all those noodles coated in that sauce. And delicious. Perfect. And then, I typically like to get just some parsley. Add a little bit of green in there, a little bit. And then if you really want, everything off. Some Parmesan cheese. It'll come out, maybe. It'll be okay. There you go. clam shell on top. And that's it. Alright, so a little twist of those noodles in there. A little bit of chicken. A bit of that mushroom. Very rich. That mushroom just soaks up so much flavor. That's why we wanted all those mushrooms in there, because you can see they reduced a lot, but they've just really packed in all the flavor from that sauce. Very tasty. I highly recommend you make this at home. All right, and that's chicken marsala, and I hope you try this at home, and thank you for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.